The board took action in closed session to approve a leave of absence for employee 1920-19, and the board took action in closed session to approve a leave of absence for employee 19-20-20 until March 20th, and it was unanimous. Okay, now we can stand for pledge of allegiance. Salute, pledge. Pledge of allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Can I get approval of the agenda? Second. All in favor? Aye. Okay, we have a special presentation.
I'd like to introduce Rob Reading and Tyler Gertman. Back in October, to recall, Steve is the document you guys had HVAC. The board has approved some geobonds to replace HVAC systems because the majority of our HVAC systems are over 15 years old and they're breaking down at a rapid rate. So we sent out an RFP to energy companies to give us some idea on what the cost would be to replace some of the systems and also do energy efficiency upgrades. We had selected Climatech through the RFP process. So far they've been working pro bono for us, doing a lot of work coming up with some plans on what we can do to replace our aging HVAC at 5 sites and increase efficiency throughout the district. So I would like to introduce Tyler and Rob, and let them take it away.
Thank you, Assistant Superintendent Napier and President Margarino on the board. Thank you for having us in today. As we were introduced here, again, Rob Reading and Tyler Gertman here with Climatech, talking a little bit about what we found throughout the district and some of the priorities for this program moving forward. The next slide here, kind of, as we started off, a little background, how we got to this point. The district issued a competitive proposal in September of last year. In October, we were selected, fortunately. We started into our analysis looking at the operating costs, utility expenses of the district across all of the sites, comparing those to other similar facilities throughout the state, similar regions. Performed engineering site walks. Our engineering team actually came out to the campuses of the district, looked at the different technical needs of each campus, the facility needs, and the energy opportunities. We communicated with staff in January of this year, worked towards a scope of the program. Assistant Superintendent Napier mentioned the 5 specific sites of HVAC replacements were a priority. We then came back to staff earlier this month, finalized that program, that scope, as well as evaluated some different funding options for the program, including the bond funds, but also looking at some different funding opportunities that are out there as well, to help really stretch those bond dollars and help the district do more with the dollars that it does have. And we're here tonight to present our findings and a program. To the next slide, as we started off into our conversation with the district, we were communicated some major challenges in focus areas. First really being the failing heating and cooling equipment. The district has over the next few years about 200 units that are going to be beyond their useful life. So going on 30 years old, especially at these sites that we've narrowed in on, the 5 sites. 75 units are at those 5 sites, so it's a big chunk of what the district's need is going to be over the next several years and getting taken care of. Some varying technologies district-wide, looking from a lighting perspective and a controls perspective, so looking at ways to help staff be more efficient and kind of minimize the backstock of equipment the district has to have on file. Looking at the remaining Measure A dollars that are approved for this program. Obviously, it's a limited source of capital for the facilities team here. And then looking at ways to leverage that, kind of helping staff do more with less, and trying to find ways to stretch those dollars and get more work done for the district. So this is kind of a brief overview of the types of projects and the sites that are going to be included through the program. Kind of just a brief overview. I'll go more into it over here on the next slide specifically. The first slide we want to talk about is the heating and cooling equipment specifically. As we mentioned, there's about 200 units across the district's facilities that are going to be beyond their useful life, 20 to 30 years old here in the next several years. So we were communicated to focus on 5 sites, 75 specific units that are going to be 30 years old here in the next couple of years. Looking at replacing them, complete turnkey, everything from the engineering work to validate what equipment should go in, going through the Division of State Architect to make sure the project meets all state programs and codes, then actually replacing the equipment with marine-coated, high-efficient units that are going to last quite some time here, and also meet all state Title 24 performance standards. The next slide goes to some additional opportunity here. Crescent Oak Middle School has a boiler for its hot water system there, also over 30 years old. We're going to be revitalizing and modernizing that system, giving the district equipment that will last for over the next 20 years in a very cost-effective manner. The next slide is looking at the building control systems across the district. There's some varying technologies. The core goal here is to make sure all equipment is communicating back to Steve and his team here at the district office, so that remotely the district can diagnose issues that are going on with the equipment and minimize the number of trips back and forth, especially to some of the remote sites, Klamath and whatnot throughout the district, being more efficient with their time.
These systems are very important not only for the improved comfort within the space, but also to make sure you have the technologies to turn them off regarding your heating and cooling on Saturday, Sunday, and making sure you're capturing that energy savings as much as possible.
And then the last is LED lighting, so standardizing that across the district, not only from a great energy efficiency opportunity perspective and energy savings and operational general fund savings, but also looking at space comfort, improving lighting levels throughout each classroom, both for teachers and students as well.
Real quick, also with this, we understand there's some allergies to UV lighting, so all lighting that will be installed will make sure that we take that into account so that there's no allergies for the kids who have that within your district. So moving on, total infrastructure improvements price, this is turnkey, so engineering, DSA, DIR, labor, equipment, etc., everything for Title 24 compliance. $2.5 million. Due to legislation and procurement of this type of program, there will be no change orders on this project. We cannot do that. And moving on, the life cycle savings. This is savings over the life of the equipment of $4.1 million. So instead of paying Pacific Power or maintaining older equipment, you're essentially investing into your infrastructure and saving money at the same time. So about $4.1 million worth of savings over the life of the equipment, and purposefully working and collaborating with staff. That's how we needed to put this together. It could not be a burden on the general fund. It actually had to provide savings for the general fund for other elements and for other purposes. The funding sources that we discussed was a GO bond contribution of $1.25 million, and again, leveraging that and taking it 2x to get more done with private sector funding. Jeff is going to be speaking about that later on in this board meeting. But essentially, we even heard good news today that the rates have even gone even lower. So it's even better for the district to consider this. Before we move on to the next page, one thing that we talked with staff is providing a backstop for the district in terms of the guarantee of savings to make sure the district is whole on the savings of this project. Climate Tech, and I think one of the reasons why we were selected, we average on 122% of our savings projections with all of our districts. So that means that if we project 100%, you're going to see more. We're very conservative with the calculations that we take in mind, and we also take values from the California Energy Commission into our calculations as well. Again, very, very conservative. And to speak to that on the next slides, we wanted to show a few examples, or we were asked to include this within our presentation. Lodi Unified School District is a district with similar scope elements: lighting, heating and cooling, control element improvements. As you can see, the project was done back in 2013, but we wanted to show the longevity of the savings. And if you scroll down to the bottom, about $1 million in general fund savings for that project, above and beyond the guaranteed amounts that we provided them to support them. And then the next is Burlingame School District, which is also on the Bay Area, ocean effect, etc., to their equipment. Similar project, and you can see similar results in terms of their savings performance track record. In addition, not only is it fiscally beneficial and it improves the infrastructure of your schools, but we're also looking at the sustainability benefits. What does this do to the environment? And the equivalence of the savings here is removing 96 cars or 98 cars from the road, multiple houses and 13,000 trees from deforestation. And then in terms of next steps, so today we're here presenting the information to you folks. Next step would be a board consideration on March 12th or whenever you deem feasible, and then begin installation summer 2020. And with that, that concludes our presentation. Thank you for your time.
The board took action in closed session to approve a leave of absence for employee 1920-19. And the board took action in closed session to approve a leave of absence for employee 19-20-20 until March 20th. And it was unanimous. Okay, now if we can stand for pledge of allegiance. Salute, pledge. Pledge of allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Can I get approval of the agenda? Second? All in favor? Aye. Okay, we have a special presentation.
I'd like to introduce Rob Reading and Reading and Tyler Dirtman. Back in October, to recall, Steve is the docket you guys had HVAC. The board has approved some geobonds to replace HVAC systems because the majority of our HVAC systems are over 15 years old and they're breaking down at a rapid rate. So we sent out an RFP to energy companies to get us some idea on what the cost would be to replace some of the systems and also do energy efficiency upgrades. We had selected Climate Tech through the RFP process. So far they've been working pro bono for us, doing a lot of work coming up with some plans on what we can do to replace our aging HVAC at 5 sites and increase efficiency throughout the district. So I would like to introduce Tyler and Rob, and let them take it away.
Thank you, Assistant Superintendent Napier, and President Magarino on the board. Thank you for having us in today. As we were introduced here, again, Rob Reading and Tyler Gertman here with Climate Tech, talking a little bit about what we found throughout the district and some of the priorities for this program moving forward. The next slide here, kind of, as we started off, a little background, how we got to this point. The district issued a competitive proposal in September of last year. In October, we were selected, fortunately. We started into our analysis looking at the operating costs, utility expenses of the district across all of the sites, comparing those to other similar facilities throughout the state, similar regions. Performed engineering site walks. Our engineering team actually came out to the campuses of the district, looked at the different technical needs of each campus, the facility needs, and the energy opportunities. We communicated with staff in January of this year, worked towards a scope of the program. Assistant Superintendent Napier mentioned the 5 specific sites of HVAC replacements were a priority. We then came back to staff earlier this month, finalized that program, that scope, as well as evaluated some different funding options for the program, including the bond funds, but also looking at some different funding opportunities that are out there as well, to help really stretch those bond dollars and help the district do more with the dollars that it does have. And we're here tonight to present our findings and a program. To the next slide, as we started off into our conversation with the district, we communicated some major challenges in focus areas. First really being the failing heating and cooling equipment. The district has over the next few years about 200 units that are going to be beyond their useful life. So going on 30 years old, especially at these sites that we've narrowed in on, the 5 sites. 75 units are at those 5 sites, so it's a big chunk of what the district's need is going to be over the next several years and getting taken care of. Some varying technologies district-wide, looking from a lighting perspective and a controls perspective, so looking at ways to help staff be more efficient and kind of minimize the backstock of equipment the district has to have on file. Looking at the remaining Measure A dollars that are approved for this program. Obviously, it's a limited source of capital for the facilities team here, and then looking at ways to leverage that, kind of helping staff do more with less, and trying to find ways to stretch those dollars and get more work done for the district. So this is kind of a brief overview of the types of projects and the sites that are going to be included through the program. Kind of just a brief overview. I'll go more into it over here on the next slide specifically. The first slide I want to talk about is the heating and cooling equipment specifically. As we mentioned, there's about 200 units across the district's facilities that are going to be beyond their useful life, 20 to 30 years old here in the next several years. So we were communicated to focus on 5 sites, 75 specific units that are going to be 30 years old here in the next couple of years. Looking at replacing them, complete turnkey, everything from the engineering work to validate what equipment should go in, going through the Division of State Architect to make sure the project meets all state programs and codes, then actually replacing the equipment with marine-coated, high-efficient units that are going to last quite some time here, and also meet all state Title 24 performance standards. The next slide goes to some additional opportunity here. Crescent Oak Middle School has a boiler for its hot water system there, also over 30 years old. We're going to be revitalizing and modernizing that system, giving the district equipment that will last for over the next 20 years in a very cost-effective manner. The next slide is looking at the building control systems across the district. There's some varying technologies. The core goal here is to make sure all equipment is communicating back to Steve and his team here at the district office, so that remotely the district can diagnose issues that are going on with the equipment and minimize the number of trips back and forth, especially to some of the remote sites, Klamath and whatnot throughout the district, being more efficient with their time.
These systems are very important not only for the improved comfort within the space, but also to make sure you have the technologies to turn them on.
At the time of the Panthers, we have 310 current transitional kindergarten through 5th grade students. We have 46 state preschoolers that attend in both AM and PM classes. We have 14 teachers, 1 school secretary, and part-time secretary 1. We're fortunate this year. Last year we shared a school counselor. This year we have a school counselor on campus 4 days a week and a counseling technician 1 day a week. We have a speech pathologist on campus 2 days. And we have a speech IA that also works 2 days. And we're lucky this year that we have Reading Horizons. We have an instructional assistant who is on campus full-time providing reading intervention to our 3rd through 5th grade classes. And we also have 5 for Kids First after-school program instructional assistants that work at Pine Grove. Our first goal was to reduce the number of at-risk students by 20% in reading and math as measured by students scoring in Tier 3 on Ames Web benchmarks. The first pie is our fall for math, and it's just our 1st through 5th graders because TK and K do not take Ames Web in the fall. And I kept the winter one the same, comparing our 1st through 5th, so we're comparing the same kids. And as you can see, from the fall assessment to our winter assessment, we are already starting to see that achievement of reducing the number of kids scoring in that red zone by 20%. We actually met it in the next slide. I'll go to the next slide. So our ELA scores for the fall shows quite a few in the red tier, and if you look over at the winter scores, we did achieve that 20% already. And so we're looking at, I set the bar a little bit higher, saying that since we already achieved it, I want to go just that many more kids and try to get another 10% or 20% between our winter and our spring assessments. Our CAF scores for last year, in comparing with the district, Pine Grove scored pretty almost equivalent in our math for 2019 with 3rd grade and 4th grade. Our 5th grade scores were not as impressive, and I went ahead and put in what we nearly met. We had 47.5% nearly met the state and district goal. And then if you look at 2018 goals, we had 39% 3rd graders meeting or exceeding, and 38% fourth graders meeting or exceeding, and 28% of our fifth graders meeting or exceeding. And then in ELA, that's where we put a lot of our focus in for our interventions last year. In third grade, we had 25% of our students meeting or exceeding the goal. We had 28% in fourth grade and 45% in fifth grade. So you see we did get some bang for our effort in fifth grade with our reading scores, even though our math scores, where we put our focus of intervention, we had movement. Our safe schools is our second goal, and that's continuing with PBIS and implementing the MTSS structures. So we've had 2 school rules rodeo already. We had one in September and one in January. We continue to provide PBIS 101 training, and that's provided with Taryn, and any new teacher is encouraged to take that, and then I make time for any of our new classified staff to attend the trainings within their duty day. We have our student activity monitors also attended this active and effective supervision, and I encouraged them and supported them in attending it as a refresher for those who took it last year, and then sent all of my students, or not all of our classified, to it this year as well that were newly hired. Our after-school program specialist continues to do that ongoing PBIS training with Taryn, and she is attending for the first time the PBIS West Coast Conference. We are using a behavior tracking form. We've changed it from calling it an office referral to a behavior tracking because we're using the data to help improve our systems. And so we're seeing we increased in last year from the previous years where we called them office referrals. And so we didn't have teachers wanting to write an office referral if it was for a minor behavior. And so last year we started calling it an office tracking form, and we increased those to 733, and that allowed us to look at the systems better so that we could see where we need to put more of our training focus or more of our efforts in with the students on refreshers for PBIS for the Safe, Respectful, Responsible. And to date, we have 505 of those office tracking referrals as well. We have 12 students in check-in and check-out, and we have the counselor on site 4 days a week so that we're really able to zone in on the kids that need that extra support. And he and I work well together, and we're working on a lot of restorative circles so that when kids are having conflicts, we do some restorative practices with them to get down to the meat of what the problem is and be able to restore those relationships so the kids can go back to the purpose of school, which is learning. So here's our this was our fall, sorry, I had to look at who's in there. This is our fall rules rodeo, and we have both classified and certificated teachers, classified staff and certificated teachers providing the instruction. When it's a classified, it's sometimes can be the classified staff that works in that area, and sometimes it's not. So they're taking and using our lesson plans to do the instruction. And part of this year is the district rolled out the new bullying policy, and so our response to it has been to start taking it apart and looking at what we can do at Pine Grove to get some structures in place to help these kids when they want to report but they don't want to come up and be a tattletale. So we have a box in the hallway that's been repurposed as our anti-bullying reporting system, and so any student can come up and put in a note in there, and they can leave their name or not leave their name. They can tell what happened and what they saw, what happened to them, or what happened to their friends. I'm also in the process of designing 2 different kinds of reporting trackers so that students can grab a sheet and fill something out that has some guiding questions for them and something that's tailored for our little guys to be able to report. That gives them both the opportunity to leave their name or make it anonymous. One of the things that I've started this year is also writing our PBIS lesson plans for the playground sport games that they play, because the kids are lacking a common understanding of what safe, respectful, responsible play is, and they don't have a common understanding of, we don't always bring our own rules to the table. You have to figure out what the house rules are before you start playing. So the first one we started with was soccer, and I worked with a group of students, and we've done soccer and basketball. They've come up with what safe, respectful, responsible looks like when they're playing, and they've also come up with what are they going to do when it's not working. And when it's not working and they're not getting along, they said the best thing to do is the game gets called, they stop the game and they go do something else and they try it again the next day. And then, so my next step with those is to also write them for Foursquare and Tetherball, so that the kids are having input, and the kids are helping with the teaching of this as well. Our third goal is to meet or exceed the district's student attendance goal of 97%, and also to reduce the number of students that are chronically truant by 50%. And our current, so I've kept our trends going because we're staying pretty consistent with right around 93 to a little over 94%. And right now we're sitting at 94.2%. So we do a lot of things with trying to encourage kids to come to school. I think that's on the next slide. We have, oh, interesting. So the Pine Grove Panther Paw, so there's 9 letters and the Panther Paw, and that's 10 days of perfect attendance for the classroom. Once a classroom spells out Pine Grove and gets the Panther Paw, they get a popcorn party in their classroom the following Friday. Every time that we have a 97 or greater, we also get 5 minutes of extra recess, and we have monthly recognition at the Student of the Month assemblies for the students who we have them stand up that are at perfect attendance, and we announce the class that has the best attendance. We're having fun assemblies to encourage kids to come to school. We're also doing some classes that are participating in Big Buddies, which encourages kids to want to come to school. We're doing some trimester celebrations. We have classroom PBIs and attendance treasure boxes where kids must be present to win. So when we do those Panther Paw drawings, if they're not, if they're not there, then so sad they don't get to pick out of the treasure box. And then last year we started a Panther Possum attendance medallions, and it's a paw-shaped medallion, and it says perfect attendance on it. So every student who meets that perfect attendance is getting a medallion at the end of the year. We've reduced chronic absenteeism from 22% in 2017-18 to 12.7% in 2018-19. That represents 44 students. So my target this year was 22 students. We're at a higher rate than that right now, so I'm hoping that as the flu season goes down and some of those other things that cause these kids to be absent, that will help bring our numbers of kids that are considered chronic down. We're doing monthly themed spirit days, and that's our student council has set what those themes are, and it's tied in with our family lunches. So every second Wednesday of the month is our family lunch, and the kids come dressed as Crazy Hair Day or Sports Day or whatever the theme is. Our staff has started a ukulele club, and they are playing at performances almost monthly now. We have a student council, and that's pretty active. They participate in some of our monthly assemblies, and they also ran our very first fundraiser in February and raised, I think it was $110, which they have some plans to help spend. And then our third grade does ed camps. So all of these are reasons that we want kids to come, we're encouraging kids to come to school. We started this year for the first time the Panther Paw banner. Any class that hits a 97% attendance for that week, I announce on Monday morning, and then I go around and deliver a banner to the classroom, and they display it in their classroom. There's going to be prizes at the end of the year for the most banners earned. We have a welcoming hallway when you enter Pine Grove. We have student artwork up. And then this year, I want every kid to feel valued and welcomed at Pine Grove, and so I created a paw wall, and those paws over here on the side, that's one paw for every student on campus. Every time a new student comes in, I add their name to our wall. Here's our ukulele club. There's some pictures of our Spirit Day. There's kids participating in some of our assemblies, our artwork. We have, our teachers are really, really awesome, I should say possum, at creating warm and welcoming classrooms. And this is one of the doors that, that is in our 4th grade classroom. And she started off the year with just all the different things that bring, that you are as a person, with pictures of the kids. And so the kids walk in and they know, they see we're loved, we're a friend, we're explorers, we're scientists, we're, and the other ones that are up there. So we're important, and that's another way that kids feel connected and they feel wanted in the classroom. And you see, anytime you walk into one of our classrooms at Pine Grove, you see lots of warm fuzzies that the teachers do above and beyond to help create that environment where the kids want to come to school. These are some pictures of ed camps. Ed camp, if you're not familiar with that, is where the kids design the lessons and the kids are teaching the lessons. So each one of these, the kids have either taught or are in the process of teaching, and they have a group that they're teaching the lesson to, and then the boys down here on the bottom, they worked together to make a plan, and they came up with it, and they built a game, and they're playing the game, and they're pretty engaged. Our staff, to build a staff unity, we do monthly themed potlucks. We have like you said, the ukulele band, and then we're doing some fun activities. So here's some of our cutest baby faces on Pine Grove, and we did a little, so you could guess the most who they belong to. And then our 4th goal is to increase parent involvement, and so we want to have movie nights. Our goal is 3 this year. We changed our format this year to do our meet and greet and back to school night as a combined event. We do 10 monthly family lunches. We have, we've already had an internet safety night where kids came to do STEAM activities and parents came to learn about some internet safety. We do a big book picnic and STEAM night. We have monthly awards assemblies honoring between 96 and 115 students. We have a 5th grade moving up ceremony, kindergarten graduation, preschool graduation. We do a minimum of 5 music concerts and usually 2 to 3 plays every year, and then we have monthly PTO meetings. Here's some pictures from our STEAM night. The kids are doing stacking the cups, so and then the parents are we did a pizza meal for the parents and the kids, and so they're eating pizza. And then the one over here with the playground, that's some of our family lunches. And so we get between we have like between 75, 80 cars that show up on family lunch. So that's a lot of families coming to eat lunch with their kids. And then we did prizes, and the kids won the prizes. So those were our prize winners from the STEAM night. That's one of our plays and concerts, and then another picture of our family lunches. Student Council was elected again this year in October. They've planned our spirit themes, and they promoted them in the classrooms with posters and presentations. They voted on the responsible, they have voted on, will vote on some more of the responsible student club activity and privileges. They want to see the RSC Lunch Club continued. They'll get to vote on our next Rules Rodeo. If you're an RSC, which is a Responsible Student Club member, you don't have to attend the Rules Rodeo. It's a privilege. And so the Student Council will be voting on what activity they get to do that instead of going around for Rules Rodeo. They meet Mondays after school this year, and as I mentioned before, they did their first Candygram fundraiser. And they go around on Spirit Day and they total up our participants, and then they award Spirit, the Pamphlet, to the class to hold for the month. Last year when I presented at the end of the year, I said that we had some goals that we were looking forward to starting off this year. One of them was that we would have an MTSS team attend a summer institute, and we did not meet that one, but we're working on doing that. We talked about a data wall. We wanted to implement a data wall again at Pine Grove, and so that is up and running. Our TKK teachers are providing intervention, and we're currently meeting that. We had been presented with Reading Horizons. My team voted that they wanted Reading Horizons, and so we currently are meeting that goal with having Reading Horizons on our campus. And we wanted to start family STEAM nights, and we've hosted one in February, and we're planning one for March and one for May. Pine Grove's wish list. So we still are at a substitute for our special education classroom. It's really hard to move forward with MTSS and putting in the structures and supports that are part of MTS when we're operating with a substitute in our special education classroom. So we'd really like to have a dynamic special ed teacher hired. PTO purchased a hydration station at the end of last year, and it's been in, and we have a work order in it. And for it to be installed, we have the place picked out and everything, so it's a wish list item that we have that installed. Pine Grove has been known traditionally for its plays. We have lots of plays, musical plays that the teachers do. And our lighting system is substandard at this point, and we have to work and rig the electrical parts and stuff. So we would really like to be able to update our lighting system. And our playground, I only put in one picture, but when we got the new swing sets about 4 years ago, they came over and they took one piece of our play structure out because that's where they thought the swing set was going to go, and they left it blank. So there's nothing there. So we have some space, and we'd like to put some stuff in that space. And so we're beginning to have those conversations with PTO and stuff about some ideas. So that's our wish list.
Any questions from the board?
I have a question. Going to the behavior tracking system,
Mm-hmm.
when you notice the increase because you changed the criteria,
Mm-hmm.
what kinds of things were getting left out previously?
Previously, the teachers were leaving out a lot of the minors. So previously, the only thing that was being tracked were the ones where they wanted the principal to take action. And so once we changed the system, and I said, no, we're really looking at how are we going to improve our system. We want to see where the behaviors are happening. We want to see what the behaviors are. And you can submit it saying teacher action taken. And then I don't even see those students. We just enter it so that we're tracking the data. We've also put to where the classified staff can fill them out as well. And then there's a classified spot where they took classified action was taken, and I don't have to take action. And then it gives us a chance to really look at the difference between are they having lots of minors before they get to the major? Because sometimes we get a kid who's never acted out or I've never seen comes up for a behavior that the teacher's been dealing with or they've been dealing with on the playground, but I haven't seen it because it was always a minor and they didn't write it up. Now we have the data to show, yes, the student is just progressively amping up what they're doing, and so now I'm intervening. And then it helps with us knowing how to provide some interventions for those students.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Debbie, bit concerned about the climate of Pine Grove. How do we do the climate of Pine Grove?
With my staff? Well, we've been in transition, and I think that we're increasing our climate. We have a lot of different activities that we're doing, like I mentioned, the ukulele club. Last year, we had a couple of potlucks. This year, we're doing a potluck every family lunch. And family lunch is a time when I make sure that we have enough people out on the playground that we have one lunchtime that is from kindergarten, TK through 5th grade can be in the lunchroom at the same time. So that's time for them to collaborate, that's a time for them to visit, it's time for them to relax. Myself and another teacher who's on Sunshine, we work pretty hard at making sure that we bring warm fuzzies into the staff room. So there's always treats in the staff room. I bring in things a couple times a month into the staff room. I myself have hosted a potluck, not a potluck, a catering. I catered Sunset to come to Pine Grove as a Christmas thank you and gift to my staff. And I did one at the beginning of the school year that was also myself catering. So I think that I'm working at building the climate. I know that it's never perfect, but I do work at it.
Just want to be clear, we have some challenges at Pine Grove that you may or may not be aware of. We've had a large number of non-reelects at Pine Grove over the last couple of years. We've had many transfers coming out of Pine Grove. We've had resignations at Pine Grove. And currently, Pine Grove has the largest percentage of new teachers in the district. So to you, I say again, are we doing all we can to support those new teachers at Pine Grove School?
I'm working on it.
Thank you.
I'm trying. I'm looking at other ways to support them. I look at making sure, like last year with our new teachers, and so I also want to address the fact that, you know, last year we weren't hiring teachers for Pine Grove until August. We weren't hiring teachers at Pine Grove until September and October. And so sometimes when we're waiting and not long to hire, then that's what happens. And yes, we had a teacher who transferred out, and she transferred to Smith River. She was recruited to come to Delaware County by one of the Smith River teachers, Luis. He works down in Humboldt County. He recruited her to come to Delaware County. When the opening at Smith River opened up, she chose to go and apply, and she got the job. And her family lives there. Her son is now going to Smith River. That was the best placement for her. That's what she wanted, and I thought that that was great for her.
I just want to make sure that teachers are being supported, like for instance, you mentioned the STEM night. Communication is always a challenge with any school. I want to ensure that communication is happening with all teachers, and that, for instance, a STEM night, if teachers are being asked to come after the duty day, and it's not part of their active duties, that we are in fact compensating them for that.
Absolutely, absolutely. So STEM night is an adjunct duty. They get 2 hours of credit for that, even though it's only an hour and a half. I get them credit for the prepping and planning for it. Last year and this year, I made sure that even though currently the system is that if you're a new teacher, you get BITSA. So if you still are in that first 2-year teaching, you get a BITSA mentor. If you're not, that you're new, you've been teaching somewhere else and you're not new to teaching but new to our district, there's no mentor, you know, that's assigned from the school side. I made sure that all of my teachers last year had a mentor. I put in my budget to support those mentors, working with them by paying them extra hours to do that. I did that again this year. So they have the opportunities to work with other teachers. I make sure that I do build some budget money to support them. So I'm open, my door is always open, you know, to discuss if there's other things that I can be doing. I'm more than willing to explore that. But I do feel like I'm addressing and doing a lot.
Any other questions?
I have a question on your math, the CAST math data. Your 4th grade went down like 20%, but they went up in the English. Is there anything specific that you can relate that to?
Yeah. It's the next slide up. There you go. Yeah, there is. Mrs. Bergman is our 4th, 5th grade teacher last year, and she was out half of the year on medical leave. So half of those students had 2 different long-term substitute teachers, and there were some challenges in there. And like I said earlier, we put our focus on reading intervention during our 2 30-minute periods of intervention that's provided with PE and computer lab time. And so Mr. Smith and I talked about, you know, some other things. We're exploring being able to provide a 3rd intervention time for 5th grade. But last year it was a lot of, like, we were putting out fires a lot.
Can I speak to that point? Because I'm the 4th grade teacher. I noticed my scores went down. I tracked it. I took every 3rd grade teacher. I took all their 3rd grade scores and tracked mine. And I know 4s went to 2s on some of them. And partly that's my fault. I'll take ownership of that. Second is I knew, because I have taught at previous schools and had different curriculum, that the curriculum was not rigorous enough. And being a 1st-year teacher in a new district at that school, I don't have time to supplement the math. I didn't have time to supplement a book, right? I just needed to open the book, and this is what we're doing. This year, Debbie has been gracious enough to purchase Zern, which is that online program, and she purchased the curriculum with it. I know Leslie's aware of this, and some of the coaches I've worked with. The Ames web scores were great. And it's so rigorous and it's so hard, and I love teaching it. And I think, and I'm hopeful that the scores from 3rd grade last year will be even better than they were. I mean, they'll be better this year. I mean, because I literally had kids saying this is too easy. And I knew it was. I just didn't have the time, to be honest, or the energy to find other math stuff on top of all the other subjects I teach.
And the really nice thing about Zern is that it has that online component to it, and that's the intervention piece that we are able to provide right now with math, and that's, it reteaches the lesson, it reteaches the concept, it's standards aligned, and so if a student is working along and they come to a problem and they get it wrong, Zern pops up with a reteach on that concept. And then they provide them with 2 or 3 more problems. And if they get it wrong, it pops up again. And Mr. Smith is then able to take, and he runs a report. So he looks at which students it took more time for them to pass that mastery level and on that standard. And then he's able to go in and provide some more support to those students.
And I think the key word in there is rigor. It's more rigorous.
I don't think it's, I mean, it's not too, it's like a 2% decrease from 3rd to 4th, but 4th to 5th is like a 20% decrease, so
Yeah.
that's where I was thinking.
Oh,
There's
Yeah.
something. But thank you for your honesty.
yeah,
That's
That,
to hear.
and that was kind of a surprise. I went back and I looked at that, and I looked at it multiple times thinking, I did the math wrong, because I was thinking it just shouldn't have been that low. We had 47% nearly met, but we just didn't get them over that hump. And so I look at, you know, the different challenges that we had last year, and like I said, we had a substitute teacher in there for almost 2 months that was really struggling, and then we had another teacher that was in there until Mrs. Bergman came back. And so again, when we have a revolving door of teachers, it's, you know, it's ultimately affects student progress.
Any other questions?
Please visit the school sites.
Thank you, Debbie.
Thank you.
Okay, we have another presentation for the Curriculum and Instruction Department, presentation by Leslie Machado.
Right. This is the amazing staff that I have the pleasure to work with. I just want to say a shout out to our support staff, Diane Weldon, April Martin, Jill Sear. Fantastic. April's new to our team, and I'm super pleased. I'm pleased with everyone, but I just don't think we give enough shout outs up there, so I really want to do a shout out. And there she is. Next. So I've done this a little differently. We've organized everything around the LCAP goals, because that's what we're going to be talking about, coincidentally, tonight. So the first LCAP goal is student achievement, increasing student achievement and closing the achievement gap. Textbook adoptions are huge, and I can say that right now, in the past 3 years, we've worked diligently to support the adoption of two textbooks, and it's in progress, the Science for K-8. And in addition, we are looking at world language. I'm not quite sure where we are exactly with that at the high school, but that is also on the horizon. Those books are very, very old. So this is something that we do to increase student achievement across the district. Next. The other part is curriculum. So we know that the curriculum is our grade level standards, and we use the textbooks to support us in our instruction of those standards. Because we've adopted so many different textbooks, and because in the last 3 years we have hired 70 first and second year teachers, we know that this year we need to allow some time for kindergarten and 8th grade teachers at the first day back. They got to meet in their grade level groups and really look at pacing guides. So we began that work, and some of them have done it numerous times. They've started it, and they came with a lot of resources and a lot, but really to support our new teachers, we felt like we needed to kind of have that mapped out for everyone. So we began that work, and we've continued it through our grade level meetings. We've been doing interims, and for those of you who don't know, interim assessments are through the CAS system, which is our summative assessment we take at the end of the year. And they're quite different, I'm sure you've heard, than any other assessment that students or teachers have been exposed to in the past. And so it's important, especially with students who might have accommodations or modifications through an IEP or a 504, that they have the opportunity to practice with those accommodations within the platform before we get to May, and all of a sudden there's all these buttons and it's more of a distractor than it is an asset. So last year we began doing interims, having teachers give interims for both math and ELA in grades 3 through 8. And it was a process just getting into giving those interims. This year is the second year that they've given them 3 times a year, and now we're really focused on, we've given the assessment, and what does that tell us, and what are the implications for instruction and for classrooms. So this is just, these are the number of times that students, and this is an average, and there are some that are way more, and some that are a little bit less, but for the most part, it is not new to any 3rd through 8th grade teacher at this point, or student, when we come to May and we're taking the CASP test. I'm also excited to say that we met with math, science and math, math at the high school and Sunset, and we went through interims assessments, and we're continuing that work. And ELA at the high school has already been doing interims. They were ahead of the curve, so that is something that's important. There's one more thing I'm supposed to say on this. Sorry. No. Next. Another part for supporting student success, and this is an indirect support because it's really about supporting the teachers. And like I said previously, in the last 3 years, we've had 70 new teachers, and I want to explain that office. That office has three coaches in there that are grant funded and directed. So we have somebody in there that is through the early education coach. So she works with our teachers in the preschool and Head Starts, and she's funded through First 5. We have another coach that's through the Learning Communities grant and really is working on the MTSS, and another coach that is through CalWell grant and is an education or a general education behavior coach that's funded through CalWell. We also have a climate coach who's been referenced several times, and she is not grant funded, but she is explicitly stated in LCAP goal number 4, which we'll get to. And then we have 3 instructional coaches. I take that back. We have 2 instructional coaches. We began the year with 3, and as you know, one of our instructional coaches took a job somewhere else in December. So we are with 2. The pie chart is, I want to go back to the instructional coaches. In surveys we've done and conversations we had, there are some concerns with our instructional coach model. And I am open, I want to say this to everyone. If you have a better idea, any and all of your ideas, this is a support for teachers, so I want to have those conversations. One of the concerns is we had a lot of new kindergarten and first grade teachers this year. We did not have an instructional coach with the 3 that we had that had kindergarten and first grade experience. So you're looking at kindergarten through 12th grade, and with all the departments that happen, 7th through 12th grade, it's going to be nearly impossible to have somebody to meet all those goals. It is definitely a concern with teachers and with myself. We've searched for other ways to try to accommodate that. If we're talking about behavior management in a classroom, that could be pretty consistent K-12, but when you're talking about explicitly teaching a system or a program that's in kindergarten and first grade, it really needs to come from a teacher who's taught and teaches kindergarten and first grade. So we've tried to tax our kindergarten and first grade teachers even more and ask them to share their expertise with our kindergarten and first grade teachers, but they've got their own classroom and they've got a lot going on, so I hate to ask them for that, but that is a concern. Another concern that I hear is the location. The coaches are housed here, and I know in different models, coaches have been housed at sites. So I think about that, and I think absolutely it's the best place for an instructional coach to be is at a site with teachers doing the work and helping alongside with teachers. However, we have 3 instructional coaches in 12 sites, and I don't know who makes the determination of where coaches are placed, but I don't think that should be me. So if that is a conversation that we need to have, like I said before, I'd love to have it. The pie chart is from a week in October, a week in the glance. I asked coaches to do a time study and every day to fill in what they were doing, where they were working. District assessments at this time, we were doing interims. We just started interims in October. We were wrapping up some Ames web testing, and we have to update binders, and there's work that has to happen so that teachers can do their job and not have to worry about some of those small things that take a lot of time when you've got 30 kids, 35 kids looking at you ready to do it. Professional coaching is here. I already have the chart there. I'm not going to read it to you. And professional development, there's a lot of professional development that we do within the duty day, and there are coaching classes that they will offer outside the duty day and to be compensated with either pay or an hour that can count towards their 4 hours of required professional development as per their contract. And C&I, this loosey-goosey piece here, this is once we've met with teachers and we know, okay, this is what they need support in, so it's researching, preparing, getting everything ready to go in. It's also time that we need as a team to calibrate and make sure, hey, I'm working here, are we overlapping, what are you doing, can we get together? So I do pull them for about 2 hours every Wednesday because we're all everywhere, and I want to make sure that we are working together to meet the goals that we've set out to meet. Next, professional development. So far this year, these are all, and just so you know, there's a lot of repeated here, so this isn't, they're repeated. So these are a lot of the different professional development that we have offered within the duty days, which means that teachers are required, have to get a substitute, and sub-plans are no fun, and it takes a lot of time, and I'm always hesitant to pull teachers for that. I know what that takes to do that, and if you are looking at a kindergarten through 6th grade classroom, you're talking about planning for 7 different content areas at least, and if you have combos, now you're looking at 14. That is a lot of time. It's time intensive. So a lot of what we try to offer is outside of the duty day, and I'm proud to say that all staff means all staff. When that goes out, that's for classified, that's for our substitute teachers, and that is for our certificated teachers. So these are the hours that your staff has spent outside the duty day and within the duty day on training. A system that we've created is this professional development calendar. It's in the Google Calendar. It's pretty cool. I don't know who looks at it. I do, because I like that stuff. But if you click on one of the events, and so I went back to last week and I was just making sure it's still current. It is. If you click on one of the events that happened last week, I think it was a Thinking Functionally About Behavior, it pops up and it says if you'd like to see, check attendance, you can click on that, and it has tabs, and it has every time you digitally sign in with the C&I department and you choose for an hour of pay or an hour of PD, it's there. So you just have to look at the tabs on the bottom, and it usually goes by month or by subject of the professional development. So pretty cool system. Next. So reading intervention. We know K2 students are learning to read. So they get to 3rd grade and they're all readers, and that is just not true. So we have 3rd graders who should be accessing curriculum, being able to read, and they are reading to learn. But we know that far too often we have 3rd through 5th grade students who aren't able to read. So Debbie was just talking about Reading Horizons and SRA. Reading Horizons is really looking at those phonics-based skills that students are maybe lacking, and SRA is the comprehension, so joining those two together. Last year at the end of the year, we looked at Ames Web scores to see which kiddos entering 3rd, 4th, and 5th grade needed our most support. So these 81 students from these 3 sites are pulled out for half an hour, Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday. On Wednesdays, they do one-on-one pulls to get some more intensive help based on that week of what they saw was going on. I know you've seen a lot of triangles. I'd like to give you a little bit of an idea about what these triangles and what Ames Web is. Ames Web is not a benchmark. It's not saying by the end of 1st trimester, these are the standards we want to teach, and did we get it or no, we didn't. Ames Web is a benchmark screener. And what that does is 3 times a year, students take the assessment and it says, yes, they're at high risk of not meeting grade level standards by the end of the year. They're at medium risk, which is the yellow. The red is the high risk for not meeting. Yellow is they're at medium risk, and green is no risk. They look like they have the foundational skills necessary at this point to access grade level curriculum. So this is what the triangles mean. This is going from fall to winter. We've moved this all over around to try to make it, and that's just a lot of trees lined up there, but it's 2. So it's from fall to winter for 5th grade, fall to winter for 4th, and fall to winter for 3rd grade. So we see kids moving out of the high risk, and we see the medium risk increasing. So that's that. Oh, before I go into this, I was in a meeting right before, and we were planning summer school. I think that would be another thing that should have been on here that would add to hopefully increasing student achievement. So summer school is something else. And this year we're really going to look at focusing on science because we have a new science adoption. So providing professional development for teachers at the same time of getting students introduced into some science in the new curriculum that's coming. Our MTSS coach spends a lot of time with community messaging. You'll see banners and posters, and now we see our own kiddos' faces on these banners and posters, and she's spent a lot of time making sure that parents are aware that their kiddos need to be in school. Chronic absenteeism is something that we talk about a lot. She spends a lot of time in our MTSS meets monthly, our group meets monthly, and she also sits with every site principal and goes over chronic absenteeism data. It's really important that we are looking at chronic absenteeism from a community approach, so we're bringing all of our community partners in to ensure that the supports and resources are aligned. So what we're doing here in the district isn't out of line with what's going on with the other community resources, so she spends a lot of time meeting with outside agencies to do that. I'm going to give you a second to read all those words. The key is not to have more than 6 words, I guess, on a slide, and so, yeah, that's a little more. Really, it's about partnerships. So LCAP Goal 3 is about partnerships. Next slide. Several members of our CNI team spend a lot of our time meeting with partners in our community. So again, that we can align resources, or we make sure we're not overlapping. So many times we'll come to a meeting and we'll say, we're doing this, this, and this, and they're saying, well, we're doing this, this, and this. Well, which kiddos are you focusing on? These. So there'll be a group of kids that are having all these different resources, and it's like, oh, we need to have conversations, and we need to make sure that this is equitable for all students. So it's a powerful part of the work that our team does, and here are some of the different outside agencies and some of the things that we are working on. One other thing in here, there's a group that is meeting, I will read it for you. Del Norte Child Care Council, First 5 Building Healthy Communities, they're planning a 0 to 5 STEAM fair that will be May 30th. So we've never had a STEAM fair for our 0 to 5. It'll be interesting, it's been fun talking. I think that's it on that one. Thank you. So this is safe, clean, and welcoming schools. And this would be our climate coach. Our climate coach has created a system which is a hub. And this hub over here gives access to all staff. Again, I want to communicate that's all staff. With resources and trainings, right from there you can click on and you can get to the trainings that you would need. You can see when upcoming trainings are. There are resources right there. So as of today, these are the trainings that she has done for this year so far. And also restorative practice, I heard Debbie talk about it. Our focus has been 6th through 12th grade with restorative practice because PBIS is really in our elementary schools. And restorative practice, as of today, all of but 14 staff members in 6th through 12th grade have been trained in restorative practices. Thank you.
You have any questions?
I do, actually. Going back to, I think it's page 8. The newsletter.
Oh, trees.
Yeah, I was just trying to think about from year to year.
Yes.
And I don't know if this is all 1 year, right?
Yeah, so this is
But are there
from,
implications in terms of, say, the fall 4th grade following on the winter 3rd grade? Now, I know that these are different kids here, but
so these are the, out of the 81 kids, if you look teeny tiny down here, there's a numbered percent. So in 4th grade, I'm gonna have to do math real quick in front of you. Oh, this is an easy one. There were 21 in tier 3 in the fall in 4th grade. There were 2 that were in tier 2, and there were 2 down in a tier 1.
oh, I see. So these are small numbers.
Yeah, and then it moved, these are the same kiddos, and then they were retested just recently in January and winter.
Okay, but now moving from that,
Yes.
from winter 4th grade
Uh-huh.
to fall of 5th grade, now I know those are different kids.
Yes, so
Right.
there should be a line, that's what I was saying. This is probably one group.
But is there an implication as far as that the kids who finish 4th grade, when they get to 5th grade,
These
they're
kiddos,
not ready for it?
if these students in tier 1, low risk, if they end up in the spring and this grows, all of these students next year, when we look at 5th grade, to do it, more than likely, we are not going to pull them into an intervention group. We know that they have the basic skills to access their 5th grade curriculum.
Okay, and then, but this would be a snapshot of the year before, right?
No, these are current.
No, well,
I'm not understanding.
I'm not.
So you could use it if you had like next year, like last year's fall and winter data, you could be able to track it. Is that not just
Oh, right.
1920, but
Right, I could take these 5th grade students and I could get their scores all the way back from 3rd grade. But this isn't what this is. This is currently.
No, I understand what this is. I'm just trying to see if there is an implication in terms of something going amiss. And such that the kids who are finishing 4th grade okay are showing up in 5th grade and they're somehow not ready for it. But I'm taking it that you can't get that from this data. Am I correct in that?
You would have to show the previous year's 4th graders at the end of the year, and this year's 5th graders at the very beginning.
Okay, yeah. Is there a way of making that comparison?
You can look at last year's input data, and you can get that for you.
Okay, I'd be interested.
Yeah, so the standards are going to be different. So a student might be in 4th grade at the end of the year in the green at tier 1, low risk, they're able to access. And then when they take it in 5th grade, drop a little bit, hopefully not to the red, but maybe.
Snapshot of the year, but I'm looking from year to year, how do things change?
I can show you, I would love to sit down with you. I will sit down with you anytime and go through data. Anytime, I like it.
So Leslie, a
Yes.
little bit of concern here,
Sir,
so,
yes.
I'm sorry. I hate to be Mr. Negative all the
No.
time. We've had a number of times this school year, and Smith River was affected greatly by a year of a teacher being out and having this revolving door of sub after sub after sub after sub, and these kids suffered. 2 grade levels suffered, from January to June, and then from September all the way to January. And it's not just conducive just to Smith River. What is the major priority then when we can't not fill the position and we have teachers not teaching? Should there not be a priority to the students first?
I don't think that's a question for you in particular.
To the school, to whomever, because it's been a concern. And I think they do great work, but at the same time, if we can't fill that position, and we have students in there that are going to go down because they don't have a qualified person in there for a long, long period, I'm not talking about a week or a day, I'm talking about a year, 6 months, it makes a difference.
Any other questions? Thank you, Leslie.
Leslie, just one of the things that you've mentioned, you talked about the STEAM fair, and I saw under kindergarten readiness, can you talk about what we have coming up on March 7th?
Oh, yeah. March 7th, we're doing a TKK, kindergarten readiness, and it's really a focus on wanting to get more parents in to get their kindergartner registered. So we get those numbers sooner so we can tell them exactly what they need to bring to registration, and we'll have registration forms there. And as a lure to get them there, we're gonna give away, we have ordered some books and some crayons and pencils and some coloring pages, and I'm meeting with Deanna Lee, we have some ideas for putting in that little bag to give them. So that's March 7th, 9 to 12.
Where?
Mary Peacock.
Okay, now we have a Delaware High School Special Ed Department presentation. Charlotte?
Hello. I am the department chair for special education at Delaware High School. On our next slide, we have a breakdown of our staff. And you're going to see on the one that has fractions, those fractions don't add up, and I'm going to explain what that means. So we have a self-contained severely handicapped. We have a self-contained severely handicapped with behavioral, which are the higher functioning severely handicapped along with the behavioral. And then we have a basic English that does co-teach science that's non-severe, that's me. And we have a basic math, co-teach history, non-severe, and she does basic history also. We have a study skills teacher who does co-teach English and math. And then the half and the 3/4 I know don't add up. What is complicated with reporting that one out is they do about half of our caseload, but they do about 3/4 of our class load. So they're at our school 3/4 of the day, but they only do about half of the caseload, the full caseload of 28 that they could carry. So that's why those percentages don't, that fraction doesn't add up. Does that make sense? And then our transition, which is our post-high school to their 22nd birthday. So currently we offer co-teaching in college prep English, earth science, bridge to algebra, and algebra 1 concepts. Our gen ed kids and our students who are at risk benefit also. Participation for both teachers should be voluntary for best success. We did have a little bit of a challenge this year where we had some of our co-teach math that, as you all know, were started the year with substitutes and then filled mid-year. So those math gen ed teachers did not have the opportunity to volunteer or be asked whether they want to be involved in that, and changing the dynamics and the chemistry of that mid-year has been a little bit of a challenge. Other successes, we had 2 teachers attend the Council for Exceptional Children Conference in Portland. Our special education CTE participation is way up. Our CTE pathways are the chosen path by most of our special education students. We have our Express Joe's on-site barista training that has continued, and the Booze Biscuits, which is our transition program work experience, and career education, which is 1 to 2 times a month, exposure to skills and career options. More wins. Majority of our teachers returned this year in our department, and this has helped with cohesiveness of the DNHS SPED team. Unfortunately, we have had one teacher out for a significant portion of the year because of a head-on collision where she has been on disability. Life skills classes are going well. Students are learning cooking, community skills. There's more partnership with workability and paid work experience, and we have an extremely high pass rate in our co-teach classes. Other than the chronic absenteeism, it's almost 100%. We do have some challenges. Our IA shortages, our behavior IAs arrive without training. The BIA and severely handicapped assistants essentially have the same job demands but are not transferable without separate testing. Short IAs are currently unfilled and not posted. Usually there are no subs, and when classified exceed their limits by subbing, they pay into PERS, which raises costs for the employee and the district. Because once they qualify for PERS, they don't go backwards. So they are permanently then in the PERS system, and that is a cost to the district and to the employee. We are looking at solving this next one internally. The RSP teacher is expected to tutor every single subject without subject matter competency in the area, so we are looking at study skills by subject next year to address that. It wouldn't be 100%, but it would be study skills with a focus of English or history or math. And we're hoping to do that through our master schedule. Consistency of our DIS of supplemental services, specifically speech. We've had a mid-year speech teacher change, and that was consistency in those services being delivered. I don't think that any of our students have received direct speech services, been mostly consult because of that disruption. Exchange range of levels in special ed classes, variety of subjects, and low classified support. Barriers to special ed grad rate. DNH this year, though, is up quite a significant percentage over the district average. We are at 61.5% projected grad rate this year from DNHS. So that's a significant increase. And I think that's because of our focus on the co-teach classes. It has helped those students meet those graduation requirements, and more of them, even our SDC students, special day class students, are getting diplomas because of those co-teach. Certificate at a 5-year completion count the same as a dropout rate to the state. They don't care if they do it in 5 years or if they get a certificate of completion, the state counts them as a dropout. Geometry is still a barrier to some of our students to graduate. The state only requires the algebra. I would like the board to consider a modified diploma for special education with only algebra required, still requiring 3 years, but giving them 3 or 4 years to meet the minimum state standard of algebra and giving them a modified diploma. That exemption already exists for our foster and homeless to exempt geometry, and it seems only fair that you give a student who is born with a challenge that same opportunity through a modified diploma. Attendance dropouts, SARB enforcement is lacking at the high school. The focus has been on K-8, and so we have several students who've just disappeared. Service minutes needed, unable to be provided at alternate placements. So when a student moves from DNHS, where we have a lot of services, to one of our alternatives, Sunset or Community Day or Castle Rock, they don't get the same minutes of service. They're often transferred and marked down regardless of their need. We have 26 seniors exiting. We have 58 incoming 8th grade special ed students who are registered. We will likely need one additional SPED teacher, and right now the only promise we have, and I don't know whether any additional allocations have been made, is that our teacher who's shared with Sunset will not be shared next year. So that's 32 additional students, which is a significant increase to caseload when you remember that that caseload for that one teacher is half-half. That's way more than what she would be able to absorb is only 14, and the increase is 32. So I just want the board and staff to consider that. We need an appropriate test for our severely handicapped students for triennial assessment. The current test is too high to give useful information. Brigance would be an example of a good test that the district could purchase that would give more useful information to our severely handicapped teachers about their skill levels. And then we did purchase math severely handicapped curriculum, and we need more subject areas. Wants, we would love to see instructional assistants restored to full day for our study skills teachers, more interventions for not identified students. 504 students are lumped into our study skills classes. That's technically a function of gen ed. We may want to consider having more of a gen ed study skills so that we could focus on the special education and level 3 behavior before they're SPED, and right now there's no level 3 behavior program to address those and through MTSS. And like I said, the additional full-time special ed teacher thus far with an increase of 32 students, we have only been promised half or 3/4, depending on how you count that as an increase to our staffing. Thank you. Any questions?
I have a question. You said that on the one that you've heard that one teacher's not going to be able to be shared from Sunset?
Well, no, they have promised us that that teacher will not be shared next year. So we know that we're going to receive an increase of which is really only 1.5 periods of class load, but it's only half a teacher of caseload. Does that make sense? Because they spend 1 period plus our academic seminar, which is the 30-minute time at Sunset for their travel and the time that they service students at Sunset. but half of their caseload is at our site. So they're only going to be able to absorb caseload-wise 14 approximately of those 32 students.
And then what is DIS?
Those are the supplementary services, OT, speech, adapted PE, any ancillary services that are not provided by a teacher.
What about the modified diploma you were talking about?
Yeah, I think that a modified diploma with a application process that had to be approved through a principal would be a fabulous move in our policy to allow those students to meet the minimum statewide requirements, and that would be considered by the state to be a full diploma student. It would no longer qualify as that dropout.
What do we do about that?
Well, there are a couple of things we have to look at. Right now, we have the diploma track, and we also have the certificate of completion,
Correct.
correct?
Correct.
So we need to look at what are the requirements for a modified diploma. We can certainly do
Right,
that research.
because it would really just be the difference between what the school board is asking for a diploma and the statewide requirements. You would still have to meet the minimum statewide requirements for whatever criteria you set for a modified diploma.
I think this was also brought up last year.
It was, thank you for asking the question, this year, yeah.
And we said we would look into it. I was just about to ask today, yes, a year ago, are we looking into it?
I can assure you we'll look into it.
Yeah, because I really think it would improve our graduation rate for our special ed students at the high school level, which is going to improve the metrics of the district.
I have a question about it on 7, I think. The service minutes needed, unable to be provided, relevant placements available. Could you explain? I thought that
Basically, when we move a student to Castle Rock or Community Day or Sunset, we say, oh, well, we don't have the full continuum of services in those alternate placements, and that technically is not correct. The services should meet the goals. We should be providing in any of the placements offered by this district the amount of service that they need in order to meet those goals.
That's what my understanding is.
Yes.
How do we address that? Is that?
That would be looking at your services that are outside DNHS, and I'm only here to report on DNHS.
Okay, all right.
Good job.
Any other questions? Thank you, Charlotte.
You bet.
So now we're going to go into the public comment phase. This is an opportunity for comments by the public for non-agenda items that are within the subject matter jurisdiction of the board. The board values comments received, but the law requires that board members not engage in a back and forth conversation on items not listed on the agenda. The board may at its discretion refer a matter to administration and calendar issues for future discussion. Please limit your comments to 3 minutes. Board bylaws 9322 states individual speakers shall be allowed 3 minutes to address the board on each agenda or non-agenda items. The board shall limit the total time for public input on each item to 20 minutes. Do you have any public comments? Here we go.
Okay, I don't know if this classifies as public comment, but I have to pick my daughter up from softball in like 5 minutes. So, I'm Amber Miller. I am the lead behavior interventionist here, and I'm one of the 2 RBTs for the district. I'm going to be reading our CSE update that Sarah gave me, so I'm going to apologize. There's a lot more passionate when she speaks than I might be. You guys can be happy for that. Everybody else might be a little bummed. Okay. So.
Excuse me a second. I think there's a report coming out about that.
Yeah, I have to leave. I'm not going to be here. So I was told I could speak in public comment.
Shift that part of the
Okay,
agenda.
yeah, let's shift that
That's
to
fine.
now. That's fine.
Yeah,
All right.
We're good?
We're good, yeah.
Okay.
We got to follow the agenda here, so.
All right. Thank you.
Skipping line.
Okay. CSEA has been very busy over the past 2 weeks. We have continued to work with Colleen Parker, Summer Pike, as well as the district administrators and management to solve problems in the classified unit, including an ongoing instructional assistant crisis, which we are all fully aware of. We do not have enough people anywhere to fill our positions. That's teaching, that's all of our staff across the board. So this is nothing new. This is ongoing. We have continued to stay in touch with Summer Pike regarding our concerns with the Educational Management Solution Report. Summer will be having the first meeting with the Classification and Compensation Committee on March 5th to address some of the most significant concerns and outline the steps moving forward. We appreciate Summer's continued and collaborative effort in this huge undertaking. CSEA and DNTA worked together to host a candidate forum on Tuesday to hear from applicants for the open school board seat. It has been wonderful collaborating with DNTA to keep our members and community informed and involved, and you guys have been really great on that. So I'm glad we all get to work together. We are scheduled to return to the negotiation table on March 4th. We hope to finalize some leave language and make process on coming to an agreement on salaries and health and welfare contributions. We would like to point out that the district has known about the $13 minimum wage increase since before January 1st, 2017. It should not fall solely on classified to bring their salary schedule up to that minimum threshold. It is the responsibility of the school district to have foresight, planning, and vision when it comes to operational concerns. It is not acceptable for the district to wait until the last minute to address issues such as these and expect the classified to give up an increase to their health and welfare. To solve a problem, the district had plenty of time to deal with. We hope when we return to the table that the district will understand that even a Band-Aid needs to be the right size to keep the wound protected from getting any worse. We are dedicated to continuing to work for the district to create sustainable solutions to the problems our district and classified staff are facing. Together, we are stronger. Thank you for your time.
Okay, any other public comment?
Yeah, just gotta get my pyrotechnics here real quick. Oh, almost got it. Okay. Hi, everybody. My name's Jen Longry. I teach history and Avid at Del Mar High School. This is my 4th year there, 7th year, 6th year with the district, I don't know. This is also my 1st year with DNTA's bargaining team. And I would like to wish you all a happy anniversary. Tomorrow marks the anniversary of our first negotiating meeting for the 2019-2020 contract a year ago. 365 days later, we're still waiting and hoping and wishing that this contract will be settled. And honestly, I actually really don't think this is a very happy anniversary for a lot of the educators and DNTA members and CSEA members who are working our butts off to help the students and community. But generally I'm an optimistic person, so I'm going to close my eyes and I'm going to blow out this candle and make a wish that we settle this contract now. Thank you.
I'm Mary Michelle Cupp. I have 2 totally different things to talk about. First of all, Leslie Machado has been working with our 2nd grade level group because all of the 2nd grade teachers said we have enough on our plates and nobody jumped up to be a 2nd grade level lead. So she's been working with us and she's been doing a great job and has a very open ear to, I think it's been good for her to hear some of us that are at the school site, some of our concerns about curriculum instruction. So I just want to thank her for her openness and willingness to listen to our concerns and address them. The other thing is, it seems like the last offers that we've gotten from the district have all been multi-year offers. And I just want to give my own opinion and perspective why I'm not interested in a multi-year financial and health and welfare offer. The governor's original budget that came out seemed like it has all this money going to education this year. Then Mr. Napier's report is always full of doom and gloom. And then the information that we're getting about health and welfare for next year is doom and gloom and who knows what's going to happen. I don't want to be locked into a multi-year financial and health and welfare contract when we don't know what the heck is going on next year. And it's great for the district because you lock us into something, you don't have to pay anything more. But it's not good for all of us that are going even further backwards next year when health and welfare goes up and the district gets more money from the state and it doesn't go to the teachers.
Amen.
So that's my opinion why I would never vote for a multi-year contract for health and welfare and finances.
Do better.
Paige Thompson. I have a few different topics I would like to bring up. The first four kind of fall under the same umbrella of past agenda items, and I'm asking, I know maybe you can't respond, when those things will be addressed. So at the last board meeting, we all talked about menstrual products being provided in our school bathrooms. When do we get to find out if those are there? Maybe I wasn't here, but when do we get to find out if those are
We can
Are
find
in
out
the
right
bathrooms?
now. Mr. Morgan, you said you had.
Are they in there?
The custodial coordinator is working on them. We have to order them. We've got them on order. We ordered them last Tuesday.
Okay.
And when they come in, we'll be putting them in. We already had some others that hadn't been put in because we didn't plan on putting them in all the girls' restrooms.
It's supposed to be in every restroom, not just the female restrooms, if I'm not mistaken, per the law.
Well, I don't know about that. We were planning on putting them in all the female restrooms at the teacher's request here at the last board meeting, other than kindergarten or preschool.
Okay.
All of them above that, 1 through 12, we're planning on putting those units in. And they're about this big. I got a picture of one right
So
here.
the units will be there, but will they be stocked, and how often will they be checked?
Sure, all of that is going to happen as soon as possible. And
But you don't know a specific date?
No, I don't have a specific date because they haven't told me. We just ordered them this last week. It was just 2 weeks ago that was brought up here.
Yes.
The very next day, we were on top of it.
And that's amazing for you all. I was mostly asking them when they were going to let us know that it was followed up on. So I appreciate that they deferred to you and that you had a great answer.
Good.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
My next question is about the revolving bank account that was brought up, and then the community had several questions about it, and I'm wondering if that has just been taken off the table, if it's going to be put on a future agenda. There was a contract with New Dawn that was brought up, and the board said that they were going to table it so that they could get more information and it would come up later. I'm just wondering when that's going to come up. At the last board meeting, Jeff Harris told myself and Sarah Mitchell that he would let us know by the following Friday, and I have not heard from him yet if the board legally does or does not have to approve sunshine documents. Still haven't heard back about that. And so it's hard when and I understand that legally we can't have a back and forth, but it's frustrating as a regular attendee of these meetings to not be able to follow up, other than with, Colleen or Jeff, and sometimes that's not their jobs. Like, I shouldn't have to ask Colleen just because I know she'll respond to me if there are now tampons and pads in our student bathrooms. I guarantee she would find that answer for me, but that's not her job. I also have a problem with some misinformation that has been on our social media and on our website. And by one specific, because you cannot argue with this one, my specific example is that on February 20th, on the district's Facebook page, it was posted about a negotiations update between DNUSD and DMTA. There was a wrong number of days that we've met in February, which might seem petty. I think that's important. Okay, they're all calendared. It's a simple thing to look up. And when you click on the link, it says, it has a list of all the joint communique, and there's one joint communique from CSEA on that. I brought it up to the moderator of the DNUSD Facebook, whoever that is, and it has not been addressed. And I think that that's a really big problem. Like, that is so reflective of the lack of background knowledge and care that is going into the things that the district is publishing at any level. On the website, on the Facebook, on Twitter. That's like such a simple thing to catch, and mistakes happen. I understand that. But that was over a week ago that I pointed out that mistake, and it is still there. And like, what other misinformation, what other mistakes are being published? And I feel frustrated because I try to be as diligent as possible with the media that I'm consuming and the things that I'm also posting. And so if somebody catches, that's all I have to say for that.
I didn't prepare anything, and I'm not sure if this is the forum to speak to you right now. And I say this with a heavy heart. And I'm not doing this because I want to get anybody in trouble, Debbie. But the climate of our school, I work at Pine Grove and I'm a 4th grade teacher, and it's not very good. And I'm saying this because I care about the kids, and I'm saying this because that's ultimately who it affects. The new teachers that we have are preparing to leave because they don't feel supported, and they don't feel supported. And I asked you for my letter of rec the other day, and I feel like you should be trying to keep me, and I don't know why you're not. And you said it, when I emailed you, you said, I don't want to lose you and your dynamic teacher, and I met with you on Friday, and I said, I just need a little bit. I need a little bit from you, saying you're doing a good job, you're working hard or something. And in that moment, you never said anything. And I know I asked you not to speak, but you did speak on other things. And I can give you examples of things that need to change at our school. And I know other people have left because of that. And yeah, and it needs to change. There's this inner circle. I do student council. And I've asked you to come to student council meetings, and you haven't responded, and I know, and I'm sorry, and maybe this isn't the place to do this right now. But I just feel frustrated, and I feel like it wasn't the truth. And if you hadn't heard me before, I think you're hearing me now. And yeah. And that's it. Oh, okay, let's do that more time. I love to talk. The coaches, I really appreciate them. And I know some people complain about them and think, why is there coaching positions? But I think if people were open to feedback and asking people to come into their classrooms and say, and knowing that they can always grow and always push the boundaries, I think they should be asking these very knowledgeable people to come and ask for help. And I don't think people realize that, and I think they should do that, and it's helpful. And I've worked with Taryn, I've worked with Jamie, and I've worked with Vic, and Sarah Samples with math reasoning, and I think they're all very helpful. Thank you.
All right, any other? All right, we're going to close public comments. Go to board member report.
Went to the forum that was held by the teachers, and I'll discuss more what was said there during that call. But thank you guys for hosting that. That was awesome. I think that asked questions that I thought they were really good questions. So thank you guys for hosting that and inviting us to listen in.
Thank you for attending.
Yeah, thank you for coming.
And staying.
All right, let's move on to student board member report. Elizabeth?
Okay. Hi. Student board member report. Next slide. So over the last couple of weeks, I've been working on surveying students. I've gotten about 20 to 25% so far of the whole student body, which isn't as much as I wanted, but as a preliminary survey, it was pretty good. I found a lot of things were agreed upon by all the people I got, and there's some things they really like and there's some things they really don't. And they're listed up there. And then the one that I really want to harp on is the desks in classrooms. Like I don't want to be negative, but I've watched 3 desks collapse with students in them. So yeah, that's rough. And it's directly affecting students. And it's directly affecting their classroom environment. And then another thing that we found in the survey is students want their peers to care more about how they treat their surrounding, how they treat their school. And leadership's actually already working on something to help try and promote that. Even before I told them, hey, students want this, they were already on it. So I'm really happy about that. And we're just gonna start, it'll be kind of like a spirit week, but we'll start encouraging this campaign of don't pass it up, take it up. Just so students can help the school team and care a little bit more. And then I got some pictures from the Japan trip. Those students just got back. It was a really awesome experience. I got to talk to a couple of them, and they said it was one of the best things they've ever experienced. Some upcoming stuff. A lot of students award assemblies, book fair, spelling bee, tons of awesome student events.
Thank you. Any questions? Good job. Thank you. Okay, now we're going to consent. Can I get a motion on consent?
I'll move to approve the consent agenda.
Second? You got this money involved? All in favor? Any opposed? Right. Now we're going to reports. Teachers, General Teachers Association, Mr. Jones.
Let's make it sit too much. Good evening. Sorry to be negative. I'm not generally a negative person. Marshall Johns, DNTA President. Thank you, Redwood Voice, again, for coming to film this. I appreciate it, and we all appreciate it here. We have, like I said last time, there's a lot of teachers and a lot of people in our community that really, really do appreciate that, and we thank you greatly for that. I also want to thank the Wild Rivers Outpost for your continued support, not necessarily support, but getting the word out, and also the triplicate. Thank you for being here tonight. As Jen mentioned, it's not a happy birthday, but it is the year anniversary of when we started these negotiations. It's also broke a record. It's the longest negotiations we've gone, I believe, that I can remember, period. So, knowing that, let's look at the data. District-wide, morale is low. Stress is very high. Your front line, whether you believe it or not, your teachers, your educators, your most important asset, whether you believe it or not, we're undervalued, underappreciated, and not being respected. Mr. Harris found a loophole in our contract to prevent us from exercising our constitutional right to strike. But, get this right, September 1st is coming. School board, you've allowed the district management to create a major divide with the many certificated, classified parents, students, and our community. I don't want to beat this dead horse anymore, but I'm going to do it one more time. Why? Why has this not been settled? We all know that our insurance is going up. And at this point, we don't know if we can even get out of that JPA. The most current thing I found out last night is that there are a number of districts in Humboldt County that are preparing by March 1st, which is coming right up, to pull out. I did reach out to CVT, and they are going to be coming up with a quote to help bring our JPA out. Hopefully that'll happen, but it's not guaranteed, and if it isn't going to happen, we are going to be stuck with whatever comes down the pike, and it's not looking good. They are in the hole right now. Teachers are already earning less than we did last year. Okay? That's a hard pill to swallow. And unfortunately, many teachers are looking into other options. They are looking into options of going to districts that have positive environments to work in, under, and that actually work together to solve problems. I got into this to do this. I want to work together. I'm not looking to throw people out on the street. I want teachers to feel valued. because if teachers don't feel valued, we're going to be training, retraining, and training again. So please, end it now. I've said it for the last year, but I'm going to say it one more time. Let's end this now. Thank you.
Okay, California School Employees Association. Oh, yeah, we are. Okay, we're going to do the local control accountability plan. Mr. Kissinger.
Thank you. Just wait for it to come up. If we move on to the next slide. So this presentation talks about the process that we've been going through for the current school year and explains how the stakeholder groups evaluate programs and resources and services and make recommendations to the superintendent and school board. Can you move that up just a little bit? So as we all know, that the LCAP is a 3-year plan that describes the services and programs and resources that the districts invest in to support our students and staff. And it's a multi-year plan that has a base grant, which we get funding per student, and then a supplemental grant, and supplemental and concentration grant, where we get additional funding for students who are in the targeted subgroup. So our district has over 55% of students who are considered to be in the unduplicated counts of the targeted subgroups, which are English learners, low-income students, foster youth, and homeless. So we get additional funds for that, and those funds should be serving those students. The stakeholder groups evaluate the programs, given the information that we provide them, on the progress that we've made with the investments that we've made during that school year. We take that information, give it to the superintendent, who makes a recommendation to the Board of Education, who then makes decisions about programs for the next LCAP year by the end of June. So we actually have 11 stakeholder groups that we work with. We have the District Advisory Committee, the GLAC, and we have, I'm not going to read them all to you right there, but what we do is we meet several times a year, and the process is, at the first meeting, the purpose is to briefly go over the programs that we agreed upon or made recommendations that the board agreed upon the previous year, and we begin to look at the data that we get, and we examine the progress that we've made towards those goals with the investments that we've made the previous year. The second meeting, we then begin to take input in the form of questions, and then really begin to engage in a conversation about what's working, what were our challenges, what are the things we might want to continue doing, what are the things we might want to look at not continuing to do. So if you move on, one of the things we have to look at, actually these are 3 very important things. What are our district's greatest needs given our LCAP goals? Where are our performance gaps? And where are we making the progress? So I'd like to draw your attention to our needs. 3 of our district's 11 schools have now qualified for participation in the state's continuous school improvement program. And what that means is that these schools have most or all their performance indicators in the red or orange, which are the 2 lowest areas of the 5 levels on the state's academic performance dashboard. Because of that, each of these schools has to work with the district and staff and stakeholders in that school community to develop a comprehensive plan to move out of those areas. And those plans come with funding and resources, but what's important is those resources have to be targeted towards making improvements in those academic areas.
Tom, could you give us the name, the details of the schools?
Sure, I could. Bess Maxwell, Joe Hamilton,
And I believe the other one is, it might be, what?
Community.
Well, community's on the county side, but I also know Margaret Keating's going further in, so I believe it's Best Maxwell, Joe Hamilton, and Margaret Keating. Our district special education program has now qualified to be part of state's differentiated assistance support, because students, our special education students in English language arts and math, and in the area of chronic absenteeism and suspensions, have continuously performed lower than consistently perform lower and are in those red and orange areas. So those are areas we need to change. And so we also have a similar process to work with for our special education program. And what we're going to be doing for special education program is drilling down, and as our superintendent says, to the subatomic level, to really looking at every aspect of that program, every resource, every service, every person who serves, and working with parents and our staff to see what we can do to make improvements in those areas. So those are really our greatest needs. When you look at our performance gaps, all of our schools are academically performing below the state average in English language arts. And some of our schools are in math, but some of our schools are performing above. And again, our special education students are performing below all other student groups in English language arts, math, and in the indicator of chronic absenteeism and suspension. Our English language learners are performing lower than all other groups in, other than special education and English language arts. And one of the statistics that we talked today in our Foster Youth Advisory Council is our foster youth are being suspended at a much higher rate than our other students, actually at 25%, and something we really need to work on. So those are our gaps. When we look at our greatest progress and things to be proud of, our county and district now has 10 career technical education pathways, and we're actually looking at adding more. Our chronic absenteeism rate has dropped from where it was 4 years ago at 24.2%, is now down to 16.3%. But if we continue to do the things that we're doing in terms of focusing on individual students and looking at individual cases, we're going to continue to make progress and get that down to below 10%. Our high school has a graduation rate higher than the state's average. We're at 91.4%. And our district overall attendance rate last year was 94.2%. And if we continue to do the things that we're hearing that people are talking about, like Debbie talked about in Pine Grove, we're going to get to that 97% target. Next. So this tells the story of our student counts. When we took our snapshot at Seabed State, we had just over 3,700 students. But almost 2,500 of those students, over 55% of those students, are counted in our unduplicated count. That gives us access to more funds and more resources so that we can make investments in serving our students. 67% low income, 7% English learners. I put an asterisk next to the foster youth and homeless because those numbers don't tell the true story. We had 46 foster youth when we started, but that has gone up significantly. And when we throw the county in there, that number goes up to 79. When we have homeless students, in the district we have 145, but in the county, altogether, in the district and county, we are now serving 244 homeless students in our region, in our area. So we really need to make sure that we're serving those kids, and the way that we do that is through making sure that our actions in the LCAP goals are aligned with services that support them and help them. So how do we get our money? If you look at and what I'm really going to focus on here is just a supplemental and concentration grant. And in 2019-2020, which is this year, we got just under about $6 million. and supplemental and concentration grants, which means services that must support and serve the targeted subgroups of students. Next, 2021. And in 2021, we're looking at getting just a little bit more, but not a significant amount more, in supplemental and concentration grant funds. The big blue piece of the pie that you see, those are the base grant funds that we get for students, and that's measured on student attendance. Next. So I'm not going to read all this to you because it's a lot of words and a lot of numbers, but what I will tell you is that these are the metrics that we use to measure our 4 LCAP goals. The first goal is increasing student achievement. We look at our CST, or I shouldn't say CST, I'm making myself too older than I am. Our CASP scores. We look at our English learner reclassification rates. We look at our high school graduation rates, our college readiness rates, our A through G graduation rates. We look at decreasing secondary attrition, meaning students leaving our schools, and decreasing our dropout rates. And if you look on the far right-hand corner, those are the costs associated with the 13 actions in goal number 1. At our stakeholder meetings, we look at every action, we look at every item, we look at every cost, and the groups interact by asking questions about those actions and items and those costs. And what we've done is, when we are asked a question that we can't answer, or actually every question that gets asked gets posted on a Google Doc and accessible to all stakeholder groups, so that we continue to work on those questions and, in the spirit of total transparency, make sure everybody has those answers. So the second goal is student attendance. Well, the way we look at that is we have 9 actions, but the bottom line is all those actions should ultimately increase student attendance and reduce our chronic absenteeism rates. Can you move to the next one? Strengthening our culture of collaboration. And that's one of the goals, Leslie talked about that in her presentation. We looked at the metrics, and those metrics might be some metrics we might want to look at changing, because the metrics are really focused on the number of meetings that we're having, other than the number of CTE career pathways. And so in our meetings with the stakeholder groups, one of the things we've been finding is we might want to drill down a little bit more, not just look at the number of meetings that we're having, but survey people about the quality of those meetings and maybe get more input out of what people want to see occurring at those meetings and what type of meetings people want to have. The fourth goal is about providing safe, clean, welcoming schools. Reducing suspension rates was one of our metrics. So if intuitively reducing suspension rates ought to be because behavior has improved, our programs are working, and we're suspending less students. Increasing the number of schools that score good on the facilities inspection tool. Right now, that's an area of challenge for us, and it's something we really need to work on, and we are working on that. We're giving the Healthy Kids Survey, and we're going to create a baseline of how students feel about being connected to school, and giving a climate survey to parents. We're going to be asking them the extent to which they feel our schools have positive climates. So these are all areas that we're going to be working on this year. So ultimately, when we work with the stakeholder groups, it comes down to this, asking these 4 questions. What's working well, we want to keep doing? What doesn't seem to be working so well, so we might want to consider reviewing further? Are there any new programs or services we might want to consider? And are there things we might want to consider eliminating? So through the dialogue and discussion and back and forth, we should be able to make some strong recommendations to the Board of Education as we go further in the process in the spring. Next slide. So the final 2 pages are really about the dates, the actions, the groups that meet, and the timelines. And right now, we're actually at the end of February, so we're at the Board of Education meeting, and if you could show kind of where we go next from here, the next page. We have quite a few meetings. We have a high school survey and focus groups in March. We're going to be doing more community meetings in March. And in April, we meet again, and the Board of Education, we present our findings to. There's a public hearing in June, and then approval at the end of the month. And that is our process for the LCAP.
All right, thank you, Mr. Kissinger. Any questions? Any questions? All right, let's move on to public hearing. District Sunshine for 2021 school year for certificated collective bargaining.
Good evening. We have our District Sunshine proposal for the next contract. It's hard to believe the contract will be September 1, 2020 to August 31, 2023. Just sounds odd to me. And so we have this before you. This is the public hearing, and I'll respond to Paige's comment about information on sunshining and how we're doing it and what we should be doing in process. We've asked for a legal opinion, and we will have that for you at the next board meeting. So tonight, before you, the entire contract is open, and per contract, we have to provide our document by February, and so this is here for tonight for public comment, and then we'll bring it back for another acceptance. Because the entire contract is open, we went down article by article and responded to some things that the district would like to see changed or amended and or not changed. So. If you stop right there, I do want to talk about number 20 on the salary. We've heard over and over again about attract and retain teachers, and our recommendation is the ones we particularly are having issues with are special education teachers, math, SLPs, psychs, and nurses. And other districts are giving year-to-year service on that. So the way our contract is currently set up, when you are hired, we will grant you 5 years of service on the salary schedule, and then when you become permanent, we'll grant you an additional 5 years. That's a 2-year process in there, and then at the beginning of the 3rd year. So we would like to, many other districts are not doing it that way. They're giving year-to-year service, and this will help us to, when they walk in the door, to be able to give them their money, because as we all know, moving here is expensive, or can be, and you're taking a gamble when you're moving to the different locations. So we want to make it as attractive as possible. So that's one of the things I wanted to point out specifically. Also, the CTC, California Commission on Teacher Credentialing, you're seeing a lot of the intern programs are now done through county offices of ed. And the current language doesn't allow for us to use the any units done at a county office of ed to help a teacher on the salary schedule. I think we're going to continue seeing more and more of these types of programs throughout California, and so I think we need to address that specifically in how we bring these folks in. They are courses, they are completely approved by the Commission on Teacher Credentialing. They have a very rigorous process they have to go through to meet their requirements. And so we are thinking it would be in our best interest and their best interest if we address this in the contract for moving forward. So.
Can we look at the health and welfare? I have a concern, not a concern, it's just a question. So, are people that have retired and are guaranteed the 7 years of insurance, how are we gonna deal with that? If we bail on our insurance, get another insurance, how are we going to negotiate that with these retired people? Are they gonna get a flat fee? How's that gonna work?
It's all negotiable.
Yeah.
That's a negotiations that you have to address that.
Okay.
We've done it before when we changed into North Coast schools, so I'm sure, that's what that health committee piece that we'll pull together and address that. So, yeah, that's
And it would have to
definitely-
be bargained, yeah.
Yeah.
And I saw something with a 10% increase in something, I wasn't sure what that was. Can you show us that? Towards the bottom, on stipends?
Stipends. Currently the FFA stipend, there's an FFA teacher at Del Norte High School. That stipend has been 7% for a number of years, and that is not in line with what's happening in Humboldt. It's low compared to Humboldt ag teachers, and they put in a tremendous amount of required things because they have ag incentive funds. There's 12 criteria that they have to do to maintain those funds, and so it isn't a choice for the ag advisor to have an FFA program. They have to participate in these 12 things. They are typically out of Del Norte and provide a lot. So that was moving that stipend up to 10%. Additionally, Mr. Hatfield talked to us about when sports move into the second round of playoffs that the coaches be compensated for the additional time that they're putting in, so we've added that in there as well. And the cheer stipend is actually over a 2-season stipend, so they have to participate in 2 seasons to get the 1 stipend. And I asked about that initially when I was hired at Del Norte High, why that was, and what I was told at the time is that there was never an intention for the cheer team to travel to the outside games. And so they have been traveling. They've been doing it ever since I was hired. So I think we need to address that because it seems inequitable that they're getting 1 stipend for 2 very long seasons for football and basketball. So. And then the track and wrestling are particularly long sports, and they're not in line with the football. So that was one of the other recommendations we wanted to make. Track in particular can go much longer than any of the other sports because you have the individual kids competing, and so they go quite a bit longer than many of the other sports too. So larger team sports.
On track, wrestling, cheer, are those separated out by high school and grade school?
Yes.
I just see some of that.
Well, we don't have a wrestling team for middle school
No,
or
but you have track and cheer.
track and cheer, yeah.
Any other questions?
Can you scroll back up to like the page before this or go up again? Yeah, that one. I was just checking out the personal academic freedom. Oh.
Yeah, so
it just says lesson plans is
one
very
of the
ambiguous.
right. One of the things that's come up with principals requesting is the fact that we need emergency lesson plans in place, and that used to be in place a number of years ago, and it seems to have kind of gone by the wayside. So we want to make sure that that's happening, and so that was a request. And then obviously grading is an issue, and timelines, and there's a lot of inconsistencies throughout the district, so they want to address that. And independent study seems to be an issue, and there's a lot of inconsistencies from site to site on how quickly that's provided, the amount of materials, what's provided, and I know as a district we are already revamping the contract for independent study to have a single contract that meets the law's requirements, and so these are conversations we need to have with DNTA about implementation of that, and so.
What is the lesson plans? What is that?
Lesson plans are for emergency, so if you're gone, if you're out.
So that goes along with the emergency sub-plans?
It just says lesson plans at the very
It just
bottom.
says lesson
there.
plans.
Under
Yes,
September.
no, yeah,
So
they're
what
all,
does that
it's
mean?
all together.
Okay.
Okay.
Colleen, I know you can't see my hand because it's behind you. I bet your teacher eyes don't work on the back of your head anymore. Isn't my understanding is that independent studies are a district obligation, and that it's just traditionally that's passed down to the teachers, but that it's not explicitly written in ed code or in board policies or in our contract that independent studies have to be provided by the teachers. Like anybody could provide independent studies. Are you?
Well, I'll have to look at that.
I would have to
I'd
look at it
look
too,
at
but
those
that's what I
policies. I'd have to look at those ed codes specifically again. I do know as a district, we had an independent study program where that was the case, and they went to. Now I know Del Norte High has moved to independent study, and that was specifically to pull people back from going to Castle Rock. I mean, that was to slow down that move. I know Crescent Elk has talked about it. And maybe that's something that we need to look at. But it's just something that we need to address and work with you guys on because it's an issue.
I agree.
So are you talking about like when we have a student out for 5 days, they're going to Disneyland, they wanted to
The short-term, yeah, short-term contracts.
That's
Because I know at the high school they kind of determine what's short-term and what's long-term. So if it's a month, it's going to be long-term independent study. If it's less than that, then it's short-term and it's addressed by the individual teachers, and long-term is addressed by actual independent study people that handle that, so. But those are conversations we need to have.
So if there's something in there too, sometimes you get the student that never brings it back, even though you hound them and they never do it.
Those are the
they
things
never
we
bring it
need to
back.
talk about,
So
yes.
don't ding the teacher because the kid didn't
How
do
to
the work.
address, yeah, so.
Any other questions? All right, let's move on to action. Non-reelect of certificated staff, accounting.
So before you tonight, we do have a non-reelect that we would like you to approve. It is required by Education Code 44929.21 that we pass a resolution for probationary 2 employees prior to March 15th. And the resolution directs the district to provide this non-reelection notice to the employee. So I need you to vote on this, and actually this has to be voted on individually.
And this is only one employee, right?
Yes.
Well, I guess I just wanna know, it's just non-reelect behavior, they're not meeting standard, always
A non-reelect is not based on performance. Basically, the individual is not a good fit for the district. So it's not a performance-based non-reelection. It is just, this person is not what we want in, yeah. So.
Is this not usually talked about in closed session and then just approved publicly?
It can be.
I didn't.
I can't believe we haven't discussed this.
It can be, but we did not discuss it in closed session. It doesn't have to be.
Okay.
Does the board know they are?
So you're firing somebody that you don't even know who they are,
Or why?
or why? That's messed up.
Well, I think the general public doesn't understand that the district has the right to non-reelect any employee in the first 2 years of their employment for no reason or no cause.
I think we all understand that. We are just a little bit taken aback that the board members have questions about why this person is being non-reelected, because they are the ones who have to vote for it, and they haven't been told why this person
voting.
Like, we understand that we're not supposed to know who it is, why they're being, it's just that they don't know. That seems like,
We always have talked about it in closed session, so we know what we're doing.
yeah.
And I agree, that I don't know anything about this, and I have a hard time voting on it, that's why I was questioning it, but, I'm trying to remember the timing when we have to do it by.
We have time. This is early. We can bring it back to you to the next meeting if you would like. And we can discuss it in closed session.
again, closed session tonight.
So you can table it.
All right, can we do this?
Second.
Okay.
I think you just take it.
Okay. Good.
Thank you, board.
All right, thank you, Colleen. Now we're gonna move on to discussion, possible action, deliberate on area 4, board candidate, and board vote to appoint Mr. Kissinger.
We actually have, we have 5 board candidate interviews on the 20th and 24th. We are now going to read the questions that were submitted. People have the opportunity, the public have the opportunity to submit questions up until 4:30 p.m. on Tuesday. I'll read the questions or the comments to the board, and then there'll be 20 minutes of public comment before the board takes us up. Do you have the question? Do you have the comments?
Not receiving. Not a single comment.
Can't we offer them right now, though?
Yeah,
there's
there
20
is your
minutes.
public comment.
Right, yeah.
So nobody did any written comments? No. Okay.
Okay, so we'll go right to public comment.
All right, let's go to public comments.
Paige Thompson. I'm speaking right now as a resident of District 4. I attended 4 out of the 5 interviews that the board conducted. I also attended the DNTA CSEA. I read through all of the applications. I think it's amazing that we had 4 applicants given the current climate. Like, honestly, thank you all 5 for applying. That's people still want to be part of the school district. I was really impressed with Charlene's responses. I think that she offers a unique perspective because she's a current parent and she has a student who has special needs. I appreciated that she didn't have to know every answer. She said in the DNTA CSEA interviews, we asked a question and she said, you know what, I would have to look into that. These are the things I would look for when I'm researching it. And so I appreciated that it wasn't just like a, here's my response, that she was okay saying, I'm not sure, I really need to get back to you. I've heard amazing things about Joey. I have a concern though that my understanding is that Joey and Frank are brothers-in-law. I'm not sure if you can respond to that or not. And we try really hard in everything we do when we're making groups in our classrooms or even finding a replacement member for Dave Boker on our bargaining team. We try to make sure that we have so many voices represented, and I would be very concerned if there was that close of a relationship in 2 out of the 5 board members. And I just wanted to go on public record saying that. I've heard that you are a wonderful human. You were endorsed highly by many people I talked to. Charlene, you were too. Those were just the 2 people I was asking about. But I really have a concern in such a small district about conflicts of interest and nepotism and things like that. And I would be very nervous with that close of a relationship.
I'm not a big fan of his anyway.
Yeah, so I just wanted to go on record saying that. Thank you. And thank you all 5 for applying. And expect to hear a lot from me, whoever they apply.
Any other comments from the public? Now the board's just gonna have a conversation. You guys want to take a couple minutes break or?
I can take a break.
All right, we're gonna take a 5-minute break. Okay, so we're gonna start deliberating and having a conversation here, Mr. Collins.
Well, I just wanted to start off by saying I was sorry I wasn't able to attend the NTA thing. I was in Medford, so I missed that. But I appreciate the fact that you offered that and some of those points that come up during our discussion. When I have a decision like this to make, I try and first generate the criteria by which I want to make the decision. And as I listened to the candidates, that's what I was focused on, is how am I going to choose? My sense of it was that all the people who applied could do the job. So what we're trying to do is figure out what the best fit is. And one of the criteria that I came up with, and this is just my ideas, is board diversity. You know, we have a fairly diverse board at this point. I think it's beneficial to the community for all aspects of community to be represented, or as many as we can. I hold down the old seat, but I'm not jealous. So board diversity, problem-solving ability and orientation to problem-solving, representation ability. So I'm thinking that in terms of representing the board to the community, but also the community and teachers to the board, and participate in that dialogue, so that the person has credibility when they speak to teachers, and can represent that perspective on the board too. Understanding of the job, just, you know, what the role is and what the role is not. One, conviviality, which I think we have a pretty convivial board. We get along together, we listen to each other, and respect each other, and I would want somebody who was capable of doing that. And that's it. Those are the main criteria I came up with just as sitting down. Conviviality? Oh, okay.
That was wrong.
Unfortunately, it doesn't have X, Y, or,
And part of that criteria?
Oh, I was just really impressed that we had the number of candidates that came out for this, which was awesome, because finding anyone to do anything to do with schools is even hard. So to find that there was like 5 really good applicants was like, wow, that's awesome that we have this ability. And I would say thank you so much for the DNTA for hosting that forum, because we got to really have those conversations. And it was everyone's got like a good, and it's like, oh, okay, this is the hard part. And just, I'm looking, those are like just great words also to think about, of like how they're going to fit into our board, to the diversity, what they're bringing in the background, and like the knowledge. So what I love about our board is we all have a different knowledge background into something that does play into our school district. So with school psychology, with HR, business, me just being a former student / really loud person. And so looking at which each person brings to the board, from their education background, of like what they've done in education, to community members, to personals, how they're personally connected to our district. Because that tells me also how their heart is going to be into this district, how their heart is going to be played into the board, what concerns they're going to bring, and how they're going to help us. And so I really appreciated everyone going in compliance. That's like my criteria of what I'm looking into a candidate, and how are they going to fit, and how are they going to work with us. And when I say us, it's the district, the mission, the goal, the statement, the view of our community. How are they going to work with their community to help us move our students and our staff forward into the next few years, or at least that's what I'm looking at, is year longevity too. It's not just I'm here for until November, but like I really want to be invested into this, and I'm getting a head start into hopefully a 4-year or more seat.
So can I ask you, I didn't attend the other night, but I know I think you guys were going to ask a question on who was planning on running again in November.
Yeah.
Can you tell me who?
So 3 of the candidates said that they weren't quite sure. So Mike, Charlene, and Judy all said they weren't quite sure. Mike brought up a good point of like, because he's been retired for a while, so he's like, I love my family, I'm not sure if I want to go into this, but we'll come and see in November. Charlene said that she, which was great, when she didn't have an answer, she said, I'll get back to you on it. So she was saying she wasn't quite sure, she's still thinking about it. And Judy, she said like, no, not really, if she's not really chosen, that she wouldn't really do it, run in November. Because the question was, if you do get the seat or you don't get the seat, will you run in November? So those 3 said they wouldn't run in November if they didn't get the seat. And then George and Joey both said that they were interested in running in November if they did not receive the seat. so that was the answer to that, but I think they kind of all erred on the side of if I didn't get it, I wouldn't. The 3 answered if I didn't get it, I wouldn't run. The 2 said if I didn't get it, I would run. But then, yeah, that's what they answered and not quite sure on it.
Can I just clarify my answer?
Yeah.
It didn't matter one way or the other. I was considering it, and the closer it got, I was leaning more towards running. But I didn't say if I didn't get it, I wouldn't run.
Okay, that's
And that sense was generally felt by others that were in the room.
Sorry.
That's okay.
That's how I took it.
That's okay.
So, in interviewing the 5 of them, I think I was very impressed that 5 people came out too. I was worried that we wouldn't get one person to even come out, put their name in. My recommendation after listening to all 5, I think Charlene had very good answers to every single question we asked, and I know, I don't really know her, I know her, but I don't know her. She had really good answers. She's done research, and she has shown prior that she wants the job because she has ran before, and she unfortunately came in second the last time, so I know that her heart really is in the right spot and that she wants to do her best and put forward, and I think that that's somebody that has a special needs child would be good on our board, because that is something that we are lacking. We have special needs niece, but that is not even close to being my own child and going through what